reference, if you guys want the actual paper packets, I can do that in the future. I'm just used to just the electronic.
Well,
one.
usually I know this one's a little longer, it's like 20 pages or something. Usually they're only 4 or 5 pages.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But if
Planning
you-
Commission certainly is long, so you don't print those out, but.
Yeah, but I can, if you want, I mean, we've got a copy back there, but I can.
That's fine for tonight, and normally if it's less than 10 pages, it's nice to have it, because I like to
You like
take
the
it home and mark,
physical-
putting notes on it or
Sure.
whatever as we go, but,
Me too.
Sounds good.
Right. How are the girls doing in school?
They're good.
Yeah,
Seniors?
good. They're both seniors too, so, yeah. Seniors for now, I guess, yeah. It certainly does, yeah. Right, yeah. Miles has a job already lined up, so, yeah. Environmental sciences, so he's got a job in Helena lined up for sort of stream or river quality water monitoring,
Good for him.
yeah.
And
Still-
Spencer?
Spencer's still at home, he's.
But did you say also a senior?
He is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
yeah, but, so, yeah, he wants to go on to PT school, so,
Good for him. That's hard.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
super competitive, isn't it?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good for him though.
Jason's doing good?
But moved to a different unit, so
Okay.
his life is about ready to change a little bit, which is good.
Are they still at the bicycle unit, or?
Well, he's been in the last 4 years.
Yeah,
He's
okay.
moving into a special investigations unit. It's good for him.
What are you doing now? Okay, okay.
Operations.
For some reason, I thought Kelly told me you left there.
Not there, probably my last job. They were my, yeah, they were my client during the pandemic. And then after the project wrapped up, I swivel chaired over to work for them.
Yeah.
Kelly's still on the way.
all right, well, I think everybody's here, and we'll get started. I will call to order the Wednesday, March 5th meeting of the Forest Lake Airport Commission. This is a special meeting, I guess, because the date is off by a month, so that means the agenda cannot be adjusted. Is that what I understand from a
That is-
special meeting?
That is correct, because
Okay.
we have to notice a special meeting with exactly what we'll be discussing, so.
Got it.
We've got this noticed as presented in the agenda.
Okay. We've called the meeting to order. Number 2 on the agenda is the swearing in of our new commissioners.
Joe, do you want to join me down here? We'll get you sworn in.
Sure.
And Joe, one more time, pronounce your last name for me.
Gallmeyer.
Gallmeyer. Okay, so raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joe Gallmeyer,
I, Joe Gallmeyer,
do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully the duties
and to discharge faithfully the duties
of Commissioner of the Forest Lake Airport Commission,
of the Commissioner of the Forest Lake Airport Commission,
the City of Forest Lake, Minnesota,
City of Forest Lake, Minnesota,
to the best of my ability and judgment,
to the best of my abilities and judgment.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Next on our swearing in is Mara Bain.
Please raise your right hand. I, Mara Bain,
I, Mara Bain,
do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully the duties
and to discharge faithfully the duties
of Commissioner of the Forest Lake Airport Commission
of Commissioner of the Forest Lake Airport Commission
for the City of Forest Lake, Minnesota,
for the City of Forest Lake, Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Kurt Monson, please.
Please raise your right hand. I, Curtis Monson,
I, Curtis Munson,
do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully the duties
and to discharge faithfully the duties
of Commissioner of the Forest Lake Airport Commission
of Commissioner of the Forest Lake Airport Commission
for the City of Forest Lake, Minnesota,
for the City of Forest Lake, Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
continued service.
Thank you, Jolene. Jolene, is it all right if we take a minute and let each of the commissioners, at least the new Mara and Joe, just tell a little bit about their background with airports?
Absolutely, we do have that on the agenda, and,
Oh, is
and
is-
I'll go ahead and note the roll
I'm sorry, I
for the meeting tonight, so we don't need to do an official roll, I'll just note that for the record.
Okay, well, I don't want to jump past the open forum. Let's, we'll do, I didn't see that as number 5 on there, the introduction of new commissioners and the city administrator. So we'll go to the open forum. If anyone out there would like to step to the microphone and just, I imagine there's a pad and paper up there to sign their name. At least there, usually there's a table on the side, but it's in back, okay. Anyone? Open mic night, there we go.
Good evening. I don't know everybody here, but I've met a few people, chatted on the phone. My name's Chris Webb with Northern Plains Aviation. I'm the operating managing partner of the what has been known as the Hangar 97 hangar, which no longer exists. Hangar 97 doesn't currently operate at any capacity. 2 members on our board, myself and another partner. That would be Jason Peterson, if you guys have met Jason. But if you guys have any questions, anybody want to chat about issues or concerns, be happy to be on the same page as everybody, just to play nice in the sandbox and have a good understanding.
Welcome, welcome to our airport, yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we will move on to the introduction of new commissioners and the city administrator. I'm going to start with the city administrator.
Sure,
Mark?
thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Mark Stotts. I'm the new city administrator. I've been on the job now 2.5 weeks, I guess. And everyone's been extremely welcoming. I want to thank Jolene for all the support she's given me. And I tell you, you've got an excellent city clerk here. In my first 2.5 week impression, at least she's making a good first impression. We'll see. We'll give her another month or two maybe. But no, it's been a really nice experience, and I'm just trying to absorb, and that's what I'm doing here tonight, is just trying to absorb everything that has to do with the city. I'm learning, what we all have as our assets, whether it's a golf course or a senior center or an airport. So my background is as an engineer. I'm a civil engineer, University of Minnesota trained, and got my professional engineering license, and spent 20 years as a consulting engineer working for a consulting firm called Bonestro, and then Stantec was later bought out Bonestro. And then in 2017, one of my clients was the city of Centerville, and their position opened up as a city administrator, and I ended up taking that job, and 7 years later, here we are. So that's my kind of career path and background. I do have a small, experience level with airports, very, very minor stuff. I did a few projects out in the Maple Lake Airport, a similar, sized airport to you guys. And, but my knowledge, I will admit, is very limited in the terms of the engineering, and that's why we have our consultants here tonight to talk through some of those things. So I know enough just to be dangerous. As civil engineers, city engineers, we end up knowing just a little tiny bit about a lot of stuff, and that's kind of where I'm at with airport engineering. So I'll try to keep my nose out of the nuts and bolts of the engineering as much as I can. But yeah, here to just absorb again our commissions and committees, learn about our assets, and make sure that I fully understand what we're talking about each night at the city council meeting. So thanks, and again, thanks for having me. So
Thank you, Mark, and welcome.
bet.
And since it's a small group tonight and everybody's kind of new and Mark's new, we'll start with Joe, and I'll even throw in my background a little bit, and Kurt as well. So Joe, go ahead.
Hi, again, my name's Joe Gallmeyer. I guess a little bit about me. Lived in Forest Lake since 2008 now. Education background, I do have my bachelor's in aviation management. It's been out of the field for a little bit now, but I guess it started up at Duluth. I worked for the Duluth Airport Authority, worked for Duluth International doing some operations stuff up there for a couple of years, and then actually became the manager of Sky Harbor Airport up there for about 3 years. So it's another general aviation airport up there in Seaplane Base, so about the same size as Forest Lake with the runway and stuff. You guys have a few more tenants here, but and then after that, it came down here, and I was actually the operations manager at Key Air, which is an FBO, or used to be an FBO at the Anoka County Airport. I think it's gone through a couple FBOs since then, and is now Atlantic or something like that. So that's a little bit about my background.
Thank you. My name's Don Steeler. I have degrees in economics and engineering with a master's in civil engineering, focusing on structural. That was my area. I've been on planning commissions in my previous city in North Oaks. I've been on the airport commission here since around 2018. I'm a private pilot. Got my pilot's license in 2018. Fly a Beechcraft BE-77, and I'm just about to complete building an RV-14A. Kurt?
All right. My name is Kurt Munson. I've been a resident of Forest Lake since 2014. I have a degree in aviation management. Currently work as a pilot for Sun Country. I flew for Masaba back in the late 90s, Endeavor before Sun Country, and I've run a small business in between. So, been on the airport commission now for, I don't know, 5 years, I think.
Probably at least.
Right
that
around
much.
there?
Yeah, around that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Kurt. Mara?
Mara Bain, my husband and I have lived in Forest Lake since just after the year 2000. We raised our kids here. I served on the Forest Lake City Council for 2 years, was then mayor for 6 years. That term just ended here in January. As I was departing that term, my commitment to council and the city and to Mayor Roberts was to just help out in whichever way I can. During my time on the city, airport has been a topic of conversation and a whole various levels of capacity over the last 8 years. I'm passionate about what's good for Forest Lake, and I'm passionate about all making the things in Forest Lake better. We've got a lot of exciting things coming up here with the airport, and as part of kind of conversations with Mayor Roberts on how can I help out, this opportunity came up, and I'm happy to serve. I am the aviation, beyond being a passenger on an airplane, you don't want me near any technical conversation related to an airport, but I'm very passionate about growth, and again, what we have kind of coming in front of us related to the airport. And so happy to be here, but I'm going to take all of your advice when it comes to anything technical. I'm here to be more of the resident, the voice of the resident, and kind of voice of past council.
Great, thank you, Mara. That takes care of number 5. Next on the agenda is the election of airport commission officers. And Jolene, how do you want to do that?
Mr. Chair, I was going to suggest that perhaps, just because we don't have a full commission this evening, if the commission is open to it, that perhaps we could have a motion to postpone that election until our next meeting when we have a full commission. And that might be true for item number 7 as well, approval of the minutes from October. There are only 2 members here this evening who were at that meeting in October.
But
Commissioner?
to approve minutes, you don't need, I think we can still approve minutes without,
I think
Or unless-
I think generally the rule is that if a sitting commissioner or member of a board was absent from a meeting, they can certainly vote on them. I don't know that it's entirely the same for members who weren't even sitting at that time.
okay.
But I'll leave that to the commission to decide.
I don't have a problem with pushing both those back to next meeting, if that's what you want to do. That's, I mean, it makes sense. Anybody disagree with any of that? No?
So if we could just get a formal motion
I'll
to
make a motion to
postpone.
recommend, or to push items 6 and 7 of the agenda back. Do I table them till next meeting, or
You can motion to postpone
Motion
until
to postpone
the
until
April meeting.
April meeting?
Second.
And a second
second.
from Mara, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed? No abstentions, so it passes, so.
Great.
Okay, we'll move on to number 8, review airfield lighting maintenance proposal.
And Mr. Chair, I'll speak to this. Dave was not able to be with us tonight. He did outline a memo for your consideration in the Airport Commission packet that starts on page 7. He's proposing that the commission recommend approval of an agreement with Neo Electrical Solutions. Neo Electrical Solutions provides various services that our public works staff, while they're very capable and are doing a lot of great work out at the airport, just aren't experts in. So Dave is looking to have the commission recommend approval for this group to perform annual ground checks, semi-annual site visits, various unscheduled maintenance, and emergency services for the Forest Lake Airport related to the lighting. He's seeking to have this approved so that this group can make sure that things are operating properly as they should be, because they're experts, Dave and his staff are not. I would encourage you to review his memo if you have any questions about the details, but he's just looking for recommendation for this to move to city council for full approval.
I had read through it before, and it looks good. My question, and Silas isn't here, but I know his team is here. When we do have maintenance like lighting out there, usually Silas coordinates that, I think, in the past. And does that get typically funded by MnDOT Aeronautics directly, or does that come out of our budget? And I know we try to budget that stuff. We try to get dollars from MnDOT Aeronautics, because if you don't get them up front, you're not going to get it from them. So I just don't want to recommend that we bring in a consultant if they're going to start billing us and we haven't accounted for the billing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I guess I can't speak specifically to that.
And I don't know so we've been without an airport manager, and so things have been a
That's
little in
kind of
limbo,
the-
so please, yeah.
Yeah, if I may, there is are dollars available from MnDOT to the city.
If you could do me a favor, just state your
Oh,
name
I'm
and when
sorry.
you're with Bolton and Mink, and all, yeah.
Nick Grahek, Aviation Project Manager with Bolton and Mink. Nice to see you again or meet
Yeah.
you. There is maintenance and operations dollars given to the airports each year. I'm uncertain as to the amount for Forest Lake. I would want to confirm that a preemptive agreement would fall under that maintenance and operations, so we can follow up with Silas on that. I'd want to confirm that as well, would be our
Okay.
recommendation.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So would we just make a motion to approve this conditionally on Bolton and Mink? Would someone want to make that motion? I can make the motion.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I have one question. I don't know if, Jolene, you can answer this or not, but under the, unscheduled maintenance and emergency services, there's a yearly total there. Is that their estimate of what, one call a year is gonna be, or do we know where those numbers came from?
Are you talking about on the chart that's on page
Yes.
9
Page
there?
9.
Yes, sorry.
So the unscheduled maintenance, he has it noted as zero quantity and as needed at $130 an hour. So, just anticipating that if a call were needed, it would be billed at $130 an hour. I
Okay,
think
I guess I was.
they can't really forecast the future.
Right,
but They're
right.
just trying to be a little transparent to what they would bill for those services.
Okay,
should they
I was
arise.
just confused because it was under the yearly total column.
Yeah, you're right, it is.
So I'll make a recommendation to City Council of Forest Lake to approve the agreement with Neo Electrical Solutions, conditional on Bolton and Mink's approval of their budget. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Or any discussion on the motion? No. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And there's no opposed, so it passes, so yes. That will move on, and we'll be able to get them involved. We've had multiple lighting issues out there over the years. For those that don't know, the PAPI lighting, the lighting that gives you your flight path coming in for a pilot, when you're coming in, you click your push to talk, essentially your microphone button that talks out to the other pilots. You click it 5 times and the lights come on, and those red and white, you've seen them even if you're not a private pilot, you've seen them, and they come on and you get a pair of whites and a pair of reds and you're on the right path. And they have rarely worked since I've been here over the past 8 years. I mean, on and off, they work. Sometimes they go out, they'll go dark on you, right as you're coming in. And so there's a lot of long stories behind it, but it'll be good to have someone who's has some expertise in that kind of lighting to take a look at those things. So that's the short story on it. Yep. Item number 9, A3 and Taxi Line Bravo Extension Project. And Nick and Chris, I'll invite you back to the microphone. And this
All right.
starts on page 11 of your packets.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Again, Nick Grayheck, Project Manager with Bolton and Mink. I have with me Chris Gardner, Senior Planner with Bolton and Mink. The 2024 Taxiway A3 and Taxi Lane Bravo Extension Project finished up in middle of September of this last fall. Remaining is final landscaping and other punch list items, including an infiltration basin located to the south of the taxiway connector. So those items, we've been in contact with the contractor, they're aware of them, and they'll be addressed in the spring. Moving on to the Taxi Lane Bravo extension, also in your packet is a layout, proposed layout of 4 hangar lots along that extension. What this proposed lot is showing is 4 60 by 60 hangars located each on their lots shown by the dot dash line surrounding each building. So what we'd be looking for here is a review of these locations, and if the commission would like to approve this layout, a recommendation to council to do so.
Can we change the lot numbers only because we already have along there hangar 1, 2, and 3? And unfortunately, that 1, 2, and 3 go the wrong direction. But we would prefer that these be, 4, 5, 6, 7.
In the same sequential order that they are now?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. In the same sequential order they are now, yeah. It'd be just as confusing as everything else, but as long as they're different numbers, so we don't have 2 hangar 1s and 2 hangar 2s, yes. Otherwise, anybody have any questions or concerns regarding the layout? And that's the road behind, what's the sewer and water's back there?
Correct, so the lines running horizontal were installed as part of the project. All of the connections stubbing out from there for sanitary and water will be on the person constructing the hangar.
You don't show the roadway continuing back across there, or is it on a different page?
No, it's not shown on here. This is just the lot layouts.
Just a lot layout, okay.
Correct, yes, sir.
And how much space are there between hangar lots? Or no, the 60 by 60. So you're actually showing 60 by 60 building dimensions and probably how many feet to the lot line?
I believe it's a 10-foot setback on either side.
And is that set in stone because that has, This goes back in the history of the airport, but most of the lot separations are 5 feet. If you have a 2-hour firewall, the original, I think, this goes back before my time, the original concept was that it was supposed to be 20 feet between buildings, but if you go out to the airport, almost none of them are 20 feet apart. And it was, my understanding, the basis of the history of that was due to fire rating. And so that if you did a double, or 2-hour, I think it was a 2-hour firewall, then you could go to 10 feet between buildings. So a lot of the hangars out there now are built to within 5 feet of the setback. So I don't mind it being shown this way, but I think it should be designated somewhere that they can go that larger size. I don't want, you'd hate if someone wanted to go the extra 10 feet that, you know, they get told they can't when they actually could. So I just had that note. I don't know if anybody else has any.
So I didn't have this question prior to walking in, but since you mentioned that, do these types of considerations also go in front of the planning commission? Or is the airport commission kind of de facto acting as planning commission for those types of things on setback and?
You know, that's a
asked very
good question. I don't know that it's ever been brought before the planning commission so much. I'd have to look at our ALP and what if the ALP, does it specifically say anything about space between hangar? I know it's kind of been left out there. Silas has put in, you know, designated hangars and shows them out there, and it's noted that that's just an approximation and nothing is specific. But I don't know if it mentions anything specifically as to the minimum setback or.
No, and that's specifically, Chris Gardner, Senior Planner, Bolton Mink, that's specifically gonna be related to any sort of local code. So, on the airport layout plan that you're referencing, that would just kind of show the allowable lot size and an example building inside of that lot size. But it's really dictated off of any local codes, for what those separations, relating to the firewalls and such, and/or lot setbacks are required.
Right. I wouldn't think it needs to go to a planning commission level. So as long as it's designated here as this in the same way that these are just general representations and they're not fixed in there, I'm okay with everything I see here. Anybody else? Any thoughts, questions? Yeah, I don't have any other questions on that.
I would just be curious, so I'm assuming the requested action tonight is for a recommendation to approve to council, so we are looking for action this evening? Or a
For an
motion?
approval of this plan?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
I would just be curious on other conversations at this body, have there been other questions or concerns? And I guess I would just ask, does this plan kind of address those? Or are there still some open questions that we might still hear? I just don't have that background, so I would.
Well, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just sort of a general designation. I mean, if a commercial operation came in and they wanted 2 lots and put one huge hangar over 2 lots, that's certainly feasible, right? This is just a representation of the area and one possibility, right?
I would, in talking with Silas earlier when he was running us through this, I think that if you were to take 2 lots, 1 large hangar, it'd be some sort of amendment to this plan. So the intention is to designate these lots, as far as, you know, 5 foot here and 5 foot, there. I think that's something something we'd be able to do. But for 1 large hangar for multiple lots, the intention was for 4 here, and then I would recommend some sort of amendment or addendum.
Okay, so if we had a commercial owner come out here, and we could easily do an amendment at a later time.
I don't see why not.
No other questions?
Anything, Joe? You want to make the motion? Somebody? I can.
I would
Go.
move that we approve the A3 Taxi Line Bravo Extension Project as presented.
We have a motion
Second?
and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We have unanimous. All right, that moves forward.
All right, moving on to the next item, the 2025 runway and parallel taxiway 300-foot extension. The airport received a design grant from MnDOT Aeronautics in 2025. This includes a 300-foot extension to the runway at the 3-1 end to provide a total runway length of 3,000 feet. The pavement, drainage, grading, and lighting system, all components of that design are currently underway. The proposed schedule that we have is a city council bid authorization of final plans and specifications for May 12th. Planning on opening bids June 4th, and then at the June 9th meeting, city council approval and or presentation for approval of the low bid from that project. After the bids are opened, at that point, we will update the CIP construction cost and put in a request for state fiscal year 2026. Estimated construction cost at this time is $1.4 million. That is a 95% share with MnDOT Aeronautics at $1,330,000 and a local 5% share of $70,000. During construction, the intention is for the airport to remain open with the 3-1 end, the threshold of the 3-1 end being displaced shorter, 600 feet to provide a temporary runway with a length of 2,100 feet to maintain operations while construction is underway, keeping clear of all of the runway safety zones. Estimated construction schedule for that project would be September of 2025, with the goal of ending and being complete and operational in November of 2025.
25?
Correct.
I'm sorry, I thought the construction was in 26.
Sorry, so state fiscal year 26 begins July 1
Oh,
Of 25.
of 25. It's,
that always
it's,
throws me. Sorry.
it's
really-
confusing.
yeah.
That's the general summary on 2025 runway and taxiway 300-foot extension. Any questions on any components of the project?
I do have one. Back when I first started on the airport commission a good 8 years ago, whatever, there was, MnDOT had recommended, they didn't tell us we had to, but recommended additional lighting on top of the high power poles along Highway 61, or at least on one or two of them. Now, if we're gonna extend 300 feet this way, I certainly expect them to recommend it again, or mandate it. And the concern of mandating is, number one, the cost of that lighting, and then the number two, the operational cost of that lighting. You know, that's something the city needs to be aware of. I don't want the city to be surprised with it. I don't know if it means talking to MnDOT and see if it's still just gonna be a recommendation, then we don't necessarily have to do it. But if they're gonna suddenly mandate it in some way, then it's a cost that we'd wanna, but when it comes to construction, get included with the cost of construction. And to talk with MnDOT, I suppose, about the ongoing maintenance and cost of operation too.
Sure. You said that was about 8 years ago?
Well, yeah, I wanna say, when the runway first got paved, it was I came in shortly after that. And I remember it being a discussion item at that time, and because it was only a recommendation, and we just put it off.
So, and we did have those poles specifically identified on the airport layout plan as well.
Okay.
As, potential obstructions in there. So I'm kind of familiar with the poles
Okay.
and stuff or the lines from identifying them.
Okay.
And obviously I can't speak for MnDOT, but I would strongly believe that if they did have a directive on, hey, we're gonna require that these are marked of some sorts, I think that they would actively participate in that, or I would hope that they would actually cover the whole cost, but I obviously can't speak for MnDOT on that. The other option is looking at burying the lines then, for just a small stretch.
Varying the what?
Burying the lines for a small stretch, if that's a possibility, because then there isn't any ongoing maintenance with like maintaining the obstruction lighting or something like that.
Burying the lines.
burying the power lines if they have power.
You mean like dropping them lower?
They'll bury them in the
Oh,
ground.
burying them.
Yep.
Yeah, well, then, now you're talking millions. I gotta believe. I
well,
mean,
we
'cause
actually,
There's a very special containment underground for that kind of thing.
And I obviously can't speak to this exact scenario here, but in some other instances, we have successfully buried some power lines. I can tell you from a
Okay.
personal example in Waseca at my home airport, we've actually just recently buried some power lines to develop a little better landing zone for the skydivers kind of in the field. And that was actually a pretty negligible cost. I think it was maybe $5,000 to bury a few 100-foot run of power lines, just to have a clear approach area. It's
Interesting, okay.
power lines, buried spot,
Yeah.
back to power lines.
Yeah.
Yep.
These are pretty high-powered lines.
Yep.
But, yeah, okay, well, that might be something.
Are these the power lines along 97?
No, these are the ones along 61,
Oh, along 61,
the
okay.
big ones there, yeah. Yeah, okay, anyway. I don't have any other questions unless anybody else does. Nope.
All right, well, with that, I'll turn it over to Chris here for the clear zone acquisition plan.
Yep, thanks, guys. Once again, Chris Gardner, Senior Planner, Bolton and Mink. So just to kind of run through the clear zone acquisition plan here. So the clear zone is a trapezoidal shape off the end of each runway, restricts land use, which may be hazardous to pilots. So this is an area that is a high occurrence area for some sort of an incident to happen at an airfield. And if you actually look at the last page here, the layout that Nick had discussed that shows kind of the runway and taxiway extension, you can actually see that blue trapezoidal shape off the end of each runway. So what MnDOT's doing is they're kind of inventorying the clear zones across the state of Minnesota right now, and trying to verify that every airport has ownership or control of these trapezoidal areas off the end of each runway. So what they're doing is they're using this in their scoring matrix for any grant requests, for state grant requests. So right now, as MnDOT has it identified that the Forest Lake Airport either A, does not have full ownership of the clear zones, or B, does not have a clear zone acquisition plan on file, any state grant request currently receives a 10-point deduction for not having that stuff in place. Once a clear zone acquisition plan or full ownership is demonstrated to MnDOT, at that point, then every project gets a 5-point increase. So it's actually a 15-point spread. Right now, we're losing 10 points on any ask, and with a clear zone acquisition plan in place, it will be a positive 5 for every request. 15-point spread on that one. Currently, the airport does not own all of the land under the 3-1 clear zone, with Fenway Avenue cutting through. And so like we said, by completing the clear zone acquisition plan, this will give MnDOT the information to be able to provide an exemption. So what our clear zone acquisition plan just specifically shows what is owned in fee, what is controlled in easement, and then the areas that might not be. So we actually just sent out the clear zone acquisition plan yesterday to MnDOT for review. And we're hoping that by getting the clear zone acquisition plan completed before the April state grant requests, that we'll actually score higher and hopefully secure some more of the grants moving forward.
And Chris, I don't want to interrupt, but just so everybody's up to speed on this point system that you're talking about. Whenever we submit, for those who don't know, when we submit a project on our capital improvement plan to MnDOT Aeronautics, they receive projects from 135 airports around the state, and they grade them. And there's a very specific grading process. And if certain paperwork's in place, like you were saying, they get certain number of points. And then they grade every project. They take the budget, the dollars they have, and they start moving from the high grade down low until they run out of money in their budget. And that's how they determine that your project gets funded. And so it's absolutely critical that we get every possible point we can. And over the last years, I know Silas has been spending a lot of time, you guys as well, probably back in the office, making sure we get all the points that we can get. So that's kind of why we're driving at this.
Yep.
So-
Great recap. Thank you, Don. That's, you really hit the nail on the head with that. That's exactly correct. And with you guys being a state-only airport, you rely on the state for that major source of funding. So anything we can do to kind of increase the scoring on that. And as to kind of, Don's comments there, this is kind of a new initiative from MnDOT. It's just been the last few years that they've kind of become more transparent with their scoring and showing this. So it's kind of their initiative of being more transparent, but it also allows us to be able to find those spots where we can kind of increase those points and get us a better scoring outcome.
Just
Yes.
one question. What does that take? As I'm all for doing that plan. What does that take? Like, obviously, so work on your part. What is like rough dollar amount? And I guess my question is, was that included in airport budget to get that work done, or what are we looking at for cost to do that plan?
Yep, I believe, I'd have to double check, but I believe the Clear Zone Acquisition Plan cost on that one was $10,000. And specifically what we do with that is we kind of take all of the airport property, go through kind of the ownership and encumbrance reports for the property to kind of look and see, hey, what property do we actually own in fee? Identify every parcel on there, and where it came from, because I know you see a big chunk of airport property, but it came from individual parcels, So we have to kind of look at every parcel, identify the exact ownership, and then specifically kind of highlight the other areas. So the Forest Lake Airport does have some easements and stuff around as well. So then we have to kind of highlight all those easements, and then throw it all together for MnDOT. Also highlighting, so we mentioned there's a couple areas that are unknown and we don't have easements, specifically road right-of-ways. So then we kind of put a little document together for MnDOT, and we'd be happy to get you a copy of that as well at some point. We just sent it out yesterday, and I believe Jolene might have a copy of that as well. I think we had copied you on there, Jolene.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So we essentially kind of lay all that out and propose to MnDOT and essentially say, hey, here's the areas that we don't currently have control of. For example, I can give you like a right-of-way. On a right-of-way, we know that there's been a road here. It's that right-of-way is controlled either by the city or MnDOT or something like that. We know that the city or MnDOT isn't going to allow the erection of a building in the right-of-way. So that's adequate for MnDOT, if we kind of spell that out and say, hey, we do have a 1.2 acre area that's right-of-way traversing, traversing through that clear zone. However, as it's controlled by MnDOT, they're not going to allow somebody to build a grain leg or a structure or something in here. So we feel that this is adequate control for the airport. In addition, we kind of have to highlight all the easements and stuff as well, make sure that MnDOT actually has, and/or the airport actually has the authority to be able to go onto the property, remove an obstruction or something like that if a tree grew up. And just, they kind of want to make sure that the airport actually has control on this stuff and that it's adequate. So it's just kind of highlighting specifically the easements, right-of-ways, the areas that the control isn't 100% in fee, so.
And it's about $10,000 to Bolton and Mank. You do that work, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Yep.
Perfect.
And that was under a MnDOT grant as well, so that was another 95%.
Oh, excellent.
So the cost of the city was $500.
$500 and we get all that, yeah. So,
Great
do
answer.
you
Thank
need some kind of approval from us on that, or I would hope not, for $500? I hope we get,
Just for,
spend $500.
that item was just for information.
Just for information on that,
Great,
yep.
thank you.
It just went into MnDOT yesterday,
Okay,
so
okay,
it's
great.
well underway.
Okay.
Commissioners, I can forward you that information if you'd like to see what they sent out.
You can forward it, well, something to read at night.
Yeah. It's not too terribly long, so.
It's not.
Okay.
If I could read it, then you guys will make perfect sense of it.
Yep.
Okay, should we move on to the capital improvement plan?
Yep, and we actually have one other item on here, airport minimum standards, number 4 here.
That's number 13 on my,
Oh, okay, I apologize.
that's after the capital improvement plan.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We will run with capital improvement plan then. So we just kind of have the draft CIP attached here.
And this is page 15 of the, Jolene, it's 15 of what I'm looking at on the PDF? Yes, Mark's nodding his head. Page 15. So it's a spreadsheet that says fiscal year 26, 27, 28, 29. 30.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So just looking at the state fiscal year 2026, we have the apron expansion, design and construction for the 200 by 80 apron expansion. The runway 1331 300-foot extension construction, as well as the taxiway A 300-foot extension construction, kind of the projects that Nick just talked about here as well. So if we have any other, this is kind of preliminary right now, if we have any other items that we might want to add in here, we can definitely get that added in before the April grant stuff goes in.
So these are being submitted as is, these three, and the funding rate right now is 95%. So again, for those of you out there aren't familiar, MnDOT Aeronautics, they can change the percentage that they fund our projects, but right now, and for the last few years, it's been 95%. So for instance, $30,000 of city money would get you $600,000 of capital improvements out at our airport. Now, if MnDOT changed that down to just 80%, that same $30,000 would only get $150,000 of capital improvements. So just so everybody understands the magnitude and the importance, while we're getting 95% funding from MnDOT, how critical it is to make the best of it while we can. So I think these are great. We've talked on and on about getting more of the private hangars built. I know on the south end of the airfield, if we go back, there's where the hangars are now. Between the hangars and the wetland area, there's room, and I know Silas has sketched out roughly 10 or 11 more hangars in there. And that, of course, requires infrastructure being put in, some of which by the city, and that means dollars. And those dollars, we can put it on this capital improvement list. It's much less likely to get scored high enough because it's not critical to the operation of the airport kind of thing.
Yep. As you go out from the runway.
Yeah, as you get further from the runway, your score goes down. But I don't know what kind of dollars we would need to get that area prepared and ready to lease out 9, 10, 11 more lots, whatever we have there. Because I know we've had a waiting list for lots for private hangars for a long time, and we've never even advertised. It's just word of mouth has gotten out there, and our previous airport manager or assistant city manager, Dan Undum, kind of kept a spreadsheet of folks, and if word got out there, I think you'd have 10 lots leased in a very short period of time. But the question is what it costs to do that, and is it worth putting on the list?
Yeah, I believe this is on, if you look at that same spreadsheet, state fiscal year 2028, we have south taxi lanes extension with sanitary and water main. That's for 1,000 feet of taxi lane by 25. That's estimated at $850,500. Looking at a local share estimated at $42,525.
That's a great investment of $42,500 if we can. The likelihood of it passing MnDOT is probably slim and none, getting through this fiscal year. But if it doesn't hurt to put it up on the line for fiscal year 2026, I think it's worth putting up there. MnDOT is very happy with our airport. For those who aren't familiar, they came out a couple winters ago and walked around the airport. They're really thrilled with the direction it has been going. So. And I think, we're close enough into the city that we're kind of that next ring of growing airports. And so you never know what they might approve or, get a score higher on. So I would hate to get approved on all three and think, gosh, we should have asked for more. Yes.
I would ask also, just, I know the city has a capital improvement plan and these projects are slotted in. So if there's room in the capital improvement plan to move that up using airport funds, I'm all for it. That might be a limiter, and I just don't know off the top of my head where we are in staging of those projects on that capital improvement plan, and if bumping up, if there's room to do that or not. But I think that's an answer that.
And and let's say MnDOT comes back and, say we move it up, and MnDOT comes back and approves all of them. And now all of a sudden, we need to come up with $127,000 of city money, and if we can't, we would just
doesn't-
tell MnDOT and say, we can't afford to go through with this particular project. So I'd rather put it on there and see if it sticks.
Getting the grant offered does not lock you into anything.
Right.
Yep. And it never hurts to ask. You'll miss every shot you don't take.
That's right,
Yep.
that's right. So I think it's worth putting on there for fiscal year 2026 as well, and,
Mr. Chair, could I just ask a question?
yes.
Is it customary then to, for new hangar owners to recover some of those costs through like assessment type of, or the sale or the original?
Not those costs. There's infrastructure costs like water and sewer and that kind of thing, because that's required to go out there. And those costs, I know I got hit with like a $14,000 fee when I signed my lease.
Yeah, I
something
guess that's
like
what I
that.
was asking.
Yes.
Would you recover those infrastructure costs from the new hangar owners?
The water sewer specifically, I don't, like you're not gonna recoup their design costs or
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But yes, water sewer for sure, yeah.
Water, sewer, and the
Electric.
taxi lane or whatever you want to call it, between the driveway between.
I don't know
the
that
hangars?
I think that's part of what we'd be getting from MnDOT Aeronautics, and the city would provide the taxi lane. Remember, they're building a building, they pay property taxes on that building, so not unusual that the city would put the road in for it.
Just in new developments where we have a new house, the developer pays for the road, right? The development pays for itself, so you would see that typically that the city does not build a road with our own funds in a housing development, right? The
Right.
builders each pay, so.
I see what you mean.
I think the difference here is we've got MnDOT at the table, and so
Absolutely,
then
right.
I think it's a question of staging. The approach of apply and see if we're successful, that's served us well on the bonding side. And so it's, as long as there's no harm in us not doing the project, should we not be able to, allocate? And again, we're only talking a couple of years timing difference. I just don't know how tight we are on that capital improvement plan for the airport. But all for at least pursuing it if that's what's advised.
Yep, thanks, and we have that noted to kind of bump that up as well.
Okay. Do we need to make a motion to approve the capital, with that amendment, to approve that capital improvement plan, or?
Yeah, I would recommend a motion to approve the capital improvement plan with the revision of moving up the South Taxi Lanes extension also into 2026.
Okay, I will make a motion to recommend to the city council to approve our capital improvement plan with the change of moving the South Taxi Lane extension from 2028 up to the 2026 portion to be included with that. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Kurt Munson seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, so that is approved. So minimum standards,
Yes.
this is the hot topic.
All right.
So you guys are gonna cover this? Okay.
Yep, I was just gonna run through some stuff. Is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine, that's fine. This is gonna probably spur some discussion, but yeah.
Okay. So kind of what we have here, if we look on number 4 from the BMI memo, specifically airport minimum standards. So update the existing airport guidelines with more comprehensive minimum standards for all parties operating at the airport. New standards would establish operational procedures for all existing and future aircraft owners and businesses operating at the airport. Intent is to establish clear guidance for all parties involved. So the city So our proposal is to get a airport steering committee established. So based off this, the people that we have identified are 2 city council members, 2 airport commission members, the city administrator, and the city attorney. So then if you take a look, we do have our proposal here for the establishing the airport minimum standards. So if you look 2 more pages on, just beyond the CIP here, you can see our proposal for establishing the airport minimum standards. So this includes 6 meetings, 2 city council meetings, and 4 airport steering committee meetings. And specifically, we do need to establish, so we'd look for you guys to appoint 2 people from the airport commission to be on that steering committee. That's one thing that we would look for from the airport commission here this evening, as well as establishing a date for the kickoff. And specifically, we would like to get a date set for the kickoff. If we look at the schedule that we have proposed in our proposal here, we see that we anticipate having 60% draft minimum standards developed in June here, and then 90% draft minimum standards in September, and then following up with finalizing the approved minimum standards in December here this year. So just kind of to be able to push forward with the timelines of getting the minimum standards established, we would look to the commission to appoint 2 commission members, as well as looking for some dates that we can kind of get kicking off for the minimum standards steering committee.
And I appreciate your guys' enthusiasm on pushing this forward, and I think that's the key phrase here is pushing this forward. This came as quite a surprise to the Airport Commission. Typically, if someone was going to write new rules or recommend something for the airport, it would come through the Airport Commission. This did not come through the Airport Commission, did it? $30,000 of taxpayer money was allocated by the mayor and not by the Airport Commission. And I really, this is not it's not an HOA out at the airport. There's 31 individual lease contracts with very specific language. There are well, mine's 10 pages. There's different, I don't know how many different leases. There's at least 3. At least 3 different leases, might be more. Very specific language, very specific rules. In fact, it designates how tall before I have to cut my grass at a certain height. That's how specific some of the rules are in my lease agreement. And there is this airport guidelines document. And if you've read it, if you haven't read it, I encourage everyone to read it. It's only about 4 pages. When you read it, you'll see that this document is never intended to be rules. It's a guidelines, which is providing a sort of a broad direction of intent going forward with the airport. You'll see words in there like goals and it's a planning document that a couple of folks put together long before I was ever here, and to steer the direction of the airport. And now since then we've had an ALP and all that stuff, but again, it was airport guidelines, sort of a broad direction of intent. And now what's being proposed is creating a document of rules and regulations and restrictions and covenants and conventions, much like what you would find in a homeowners association. And I can understand the wanting for that to be there, but it violates the leases. It violates. If you were to do, your outline's got some good stuff in it, but unfortunately, if you were to go through with most anything that's in your outline and adopt it into the ordinance, it's going to violate 31 leases out there in multiple different areas. Biggest of which, it changes the entire intent of what the design guidelines were, and I signed off on a set of design of that 4-page design. So I'm really shocked that $30,000 of taxpayer money has been allocated to this when the substantial legal liability for 31 leases, for violating 31 leases, and yeah, you get into the history, this is not the first time the lease has been violated with these hangar owners. Mark, you weren't here, but this goes back to when the airport was first paved and costs overruns or whatever, and the city found it upon themselves to, or it was voted on, it was before I was here. However it happened, hangar owners were charged an additional fee per year, which was not in the lease agreement, nor an opportunity for the city to assess those fees. Now, in the end, we worked with the mayor, and we got that fee eliminated partially through. And that doesn't forget the fact that they violated the lease in that way. And we all know we could go through arbitration and recoup those dollars that we've paid. But we also know, we're smart enough to know that the cost of going through that process is probably 5 times what we would recoup. So we move on, we move forward. But if you were to do this and actually adopt it into ordinance, so it's in writing, now you've got you've developed a pattern of, the city has developed a pattern of violating the lease. Yes?
I'm uncomfortable with the assertion that the existence of the guidelines that we haven't even drafted is going to be a lease violation. I don't know if it's
Well,
just the
no,
fact
you're
that-
absolutely right,
I don't
because
know
all
if
I've
we
seen,
haven't
all I've
put
seen
any words
is a
on
very
the-
detailed outline that Jolene says, I'm sure it's in here. I don't know if you saw it.
I don't know if I've seen anything that's outside of the packet.
Yeah, it's in the in the packet, Airport's Minimum Standards Development 1.3, Section 1.3. There are some things in here that, and again, you're right, until it becomes a final, I'm just talking, I just see some of the bullet points and drafts. It's no longer a guideline, it's no longer a broad direction of intent for the airport. These are specific rules and regulations, and these are contracts. You cannot unilaterally change a contract without written agreement from both parties. And so that's why I'm bringing this up, because this will become 31 individual legal battles.
But we also have, so I look at this a little bit differently in that we also have individual homeowners in the city of Forest Lake, and we also have these umbrella.
But they don't have contracts.
But correct, but I think that there is, and I'm not an attorney, I'm not an aviation expert and I'm not an attorney, but our city attorney has articulated and did so somewhat in a joint workshop that we had with council to talk, it's where kind of the concept of some of the challenges of not having the guidelines and some of the administrative challenges that have come up over the years on not having the guidelines, and also some of the changing use. We've got new businesses coming in. People want to see what those guidelines are. What are the operating rules of the airport? And so having kind of experienced the gap and not having the guidelines, there has been a very, the city attorney articulates a very strong kind of rationale on how these two things can coexist without creating this automatic conflict. And again, I'm not the
Okay,
attorney
then
to help
I won't
navigate
jump,
that.
I won't jump ahead towards conflict either, because I just have seen the bullet points, and I listened to the January 27th city council meeting, and I heard some things there that would definitely cause conflict. But I'm gonna let that go, because this is just hypothetical and draft, and we're gonna work with the steering committee or whatever. But I'm just saying, and in fact, I had written up a motion, because I wanted to make a motion for, and I'm gonna go ahead, since we're here, I'm gonna make a motion to recommend to the City Council of Forest Lake that each council member reads the existing lease contracts and understands the potential liability to the city for unilaterally changing the terms.
But I'm not,
You don't think the city council should read the leases?
well, no, I think I think that's a fine request. And also city council approves those leases, so they should be reading those leases as they're approving them. But also, Embedded in your question is this legal crossover that I think is a good question, but I also don't think that it's an automatic, we shouldn't head down this path because
Oh,
that question exists.
I'm just throwing it out there. We're spending $30,000. And as I mentioned before, $30,000 gets us $600,000 of capital improvement projects. So when you're talking of bang for your buck in investment here,
Mr. Chair?
yes, sir.
As a matter of order, we have a motion on the table. We should have a second before further
I,
discussion.
thank you. Yeah, I realize that, yeah. I'm not very good when it gets to the Roberts rules.
Can you repeat
I
the
will read the
motion?
motion again. I make a motion to recommend to the City Council of Forest Lake that each city council member read the existing lease contracts and understand the potential liability to the city for unilaterally changing any of the terms. Is there a second?
Can I friendly amend it, ask for
You-
a friendly
A
amendment?
friendly amendment.
I
How would you
would-
like to amend it?
I don't think that that's a bad idea. I would amend and ask that there's also a discussion with the city attorney on, the last part requires some legal, understanding. And so I think to read the question, to read the contract, sure, that's a fair request. And then also to enter into a conversation with the city attorney to understand what is the potential impact and risk.
Okay, keep in mind, before I accept that friendly amendment,
Understand.
in the summer meeting, the city attorney, when I mentioned that the guidelines document was just guidelines and not an enforceable document, the city attorney argued that point and said, no, it's enforceable. Now, she completely flipped that on January 27th in her meeting. So, not sure you're gonna get the best advice there. But if you want to, and that's why I say understand the potential liability. That's why it's in there, is understand. So whether they consult with the city attorney, those are elected officials. I don't want them to be able to say, if the city gets hit with $15 million worth of suits from 31 hangar owners, I don't want the city council to say, well, city attorney told me it was okay. They just, absolutely, this is such a big issue.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order here. We have a motion on the table. We have a second.
Well,
with a
she had a friendly amendment to it,
Before
and
we
I
have
think
further
her
discuss-
amendment's
Before
covered.
we have further discussion, we need to take action on the motion. So is the friendly amendments, has that been accepted?
No, I think it's covered in here.
So the original motion that's on the table, has there
Yes.
been a second to the original motion that's on the table?
Is there a second?
If not, then the
You
motion.
can read it there. Basically, just asking city council to read the lease agreement.
I'll second it.
We have a second.
Thank
Any
you.
discussion on the,
So I'm going to vote no, and I want to give context as to why. I don't think it's an unfair request to ask city council to read the leases. They're approving the leases, they should be reading the leases. I'm going to vote no because I think it starts this conversation off on the wrong foot of challenging the basis of, can these two things coexist? And I'm going to go into this with a eyes wide open approach of, I believe these things need to coexist. I think there are other airports where this does coexist. And so for that reason, I think it starts this conversation on the wrong foot, and I'm just going to vote no for that.
understood. Any other discussion on the motion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
3, and any opposed?
Opposed.
1 opposed? Motion passes. Do you want my copy of it so you have it, Jolene, for?
That would be great. You can.
I'll give it to you
after the
afterwards.
meeting. Thank you.
Okay. I hated to interrupt you on all that, but I thought there was some formality stuff that needed to
Yep.
be covered, and I wanted to get that while it was fresh on my
Yep.
mind.
And just for a little clarification add-on, so that's kind of the purpose of the steering committee too, is this is just kind of a draft, baseline bullet points here. That we can massage this as appropriately with the steering committee. So I just wanted to add
Understood.
that
Okay.
extra
And
clarification there.
As with Commissioner Bain, I'm willing to approach it with an open mind. I didn't mean to be confrontational, but I think it's Yeah, anyway, you needed 2 volunteers.
Yep, just to, as this is something that the city does want to push forward with, we are looking for 2 people to be nominated from the airport commission, and also looking for a date, or some dates that would kind of work to start looking for a kickoff meeting time to get scheduled.
Can I give one more point of context on this? You mentioned concern over $30,000 of taxpayer dollars are being spent on this study, or spent on putting together the guidelines. So in my chair as mayor, and in my time in certainly the last couple of years of witnessing the level of staff time that was taken up by not having these guidelines, and the amount of attorney time of not having the guidelines and not having clear enforceability and clear rules and all of those things on why the guidelines exist. Yes, we are taking a period of time. $30,000 is a lot of money, but there was also a time when our interim city administrator was estimating she was spending up to 25% of her time on airport-related items. And so, again, trying to navigate the conflict and navigate the muckiness and unclearness of not having the guidelines. So not having them also has a cost, and so that's, part of the reason why we ended up here. So I just wanted to point that out.
I'm willing to be on the committee. I don't know if others, if someone wants to be nominated, or.
So I would, as being the new person on the block, I would actually prefer to defer to somebody else on the committee who is interested in this topic and passionate on this topic. I'm here to support that they exist. The actual rules themselves, I think, is best by those who are, best developed by those that are current users, best who are airport experts who understand what other airports, what are successful guidelines in other airports. That's not an area of my expertise. I'm happy to attend those meetings and kind of be the fly on the wall to understand context, but I would defer to some of the expertise on this commission.
Well, I will raise my hand and take one of those spots, if that's okay with the 2 of you guys. And do one of you 2 want to take the third one, or do we nominate?
I can.
You want to take it? I think you've got some good
No,
experience.
I just, with my schedule and everything, it's hard enough to get the commission
Nominate
meetings off.
Joe. Okay, so Joe and I will, and then you needed a kickoff date, right?
Correct.
Yes, and maybe, I don't know what the city's availability is too, but maybe, I don't know, Jolene, if we'd want to maybe locate a couple days or something, and then we can.
I think that would be probably most prudent, just based on the fact that we have
Multiple.
city attorney,
Yep.
we have members of council, folks here in this commission. If we get a couple dates put together, then
Yep.
we could figure out, what will work for that kickoff.
And will those be, I assume those will be public meetings?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Do we, is your schedule limited to certain times of days, or evenings, or,
Evenings, I can be pretty flexible anytime, but
okay,
evenings are probably preferable.
okay. Yeah, I can be available most evenings, so.
Okay.
Yeah, let's, I'll let, well, because I know the mayor's on it and Kevin's on it, so, and then we've got, of course, the city attorney and whoever from staff, or Mark. Mark, you're on it as well? You're gonna be there? Okay,
I've been nominated.
so,
Mr.
yeah, you
Mr.
get to
Chair.
bring donuts, you're the new guy, so.
There you go. Mr. Chair, just for my purposes and the record,
Yes.
could we just get a formal motion for the 2 nominees being appointed to that steering committee?
All right,
Oh, go ahead.
all right, I'll make a motion to nominate Don Steeler and Joe, you're gonna have to help me with your last name. Gallmeyer, to be on the airport steering committee.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
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 Is that an aye out of you?
Aye.
Okay. And 4 ayes, unanimous. Thank you, Jolene.
Thank you.
Keep us in line.
Then I think we'll just reach out to Jolene to look for
Yes.
a date that we can get and confirm with you guys then.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep. All right, thanks, guys. Do we have anything on? No, a motion to adjourn?
I actually have one other question, because I'm a little confused. The cost for the steering committee, is that coming out of the airport budget or is that coming out of the city general budget?
I believe that was allocated from the city's general fund, not from the
Okay.
airport.
Okay, I was just curious.
I guess before we adjourn, I'll do what we usually do and kind of run through all commissioners. If anything else to say or add, or?
Nope.
Nothing from Joe?
Oh.
Kurt? Yeah, I don't have anything either. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:41. Thank you, everyone.
All right.